Captain Zixtel clicked his mandibles together in frustration. The scanner readings made no sense. His mining ship, the Prophet's Edge, had been searching the forbidden sectors for 3 weeks now, and all they had found were rocks and radiation. His crew was getting restless, and his investors would be angry. The Vexum captain was about to order a return to civilized space when his navigation officer chirped urgently, "Captain, we have something. It's big." Zixtel's compound eyes focused on the display. There, drifting in the eternal darkness between the stars, was a massive structure. It was easily 3 kilometers long, shaped like a cylinder with strange geometric patterns along its hull. The metal was old, corroded by centuries of cosmic radiation, but it was still intact. "What is it?" Zixtel asked. His science officer, a floating gas bag creature named Fel, pulsed with curious colors. "Unknown design, Captain. The architecture doesn't match any known species in the database. Energy signatures are minimal, almost dead. But there's something. The reactor core is still active. Barely." Zixtel felt his instincts warning him. The forbidden sectors were forbidden for a reason. Ancient wars had been fought here. Dangerous weapons had been left behind. The Galactic Coalition had strict rules about exploring these areas. But the ship looked intact. If they could salvage even a fraction of its materials, they would be rich. "Send a probe," he ordered. The probe launched and crossed the distance in minutes. The cameras transmitted images back to the Prophet's Edge. The hull was covered in strange symbols, letters that looked primitive yet somehow purposeful. The probe found an airlock and began scanning. "Captain," Fel said, his voice trembling with something between fear and excitement, "I found matches in the historical database. These symbols, they're ancient, very ancient. This is writing from the first expansion era." Zixtel felt his blood run cold. The first expansion era was 800 years ago. It was the time when the galaxy was young, when species first began exploring beyond their home systems. It was also the time of the Great Wars before the hierarchy brought order. "Can you identify the species?" Zixtel asked. Fel was silent for a long moment. "Captain, the database lists this as Terran, human. But that's impossible." The bridge went silent. Every member of the crew turned to look at Fel. Humans were myths. Every child in the galaxy knew the stories. They were the monsters from ancient tales, the warriors who never stopped fighting, who turned their own bodies into weapons. Parents told their children about humans to make them behave. Scholars dismissed them as propaganda from the old wars, exaggerations meant to scare enemy species into surrender. "Humans aren't real," Zixtel said, but his voice lacked confidence. "The historical records say they were," Fel replied. "They came from a system called Sol. They appeared during the first expansion, made contact with several species, and then vanished. Most scholars believe their homeworld was destroyed in some catastrophe. Others think they never existed at all." Zixtel stared at the image of the ancient ship. If this was truly a human vessel, it was worth more than any mineral they could mine. Museums would pay fortunes. Researchers would fight each other for access. But more than that, Zixtel felt the pull of curiosity. What if humans had been real? What if this ship held answers to one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries? "I'm going aboard," he announced. His crew protested, but Zixtel was firm. He took 2 security officers with him and crossed to the ancient vessel in a small shuttle. The airlock was old but functional, and with some effort they managed to open it. The interior was dark and cold. Their lights cut through the blackness, revealing corridors that were strangely narrow compared to modern ships. Everything was built on a smaller scale, meant for creatures who walked on 2 legs and stood about 2 meters tall. "Life support is offline," one security officer reported. "Atmosphere is present, but frozen. Temperature is 200 degrees below zero." They moved deeper into the ship. The corridors were maze-like and confusing. Human thinking, Zixtel realized, was different from other species. Where other races built ships with logical, easy-to-navigate designs, humans seemed to pack everything tightly together, making use of every inch of space. They found what looked like living quarters, Small rooms with bunks, personal items still floating in zero gravity. A photograph drifted past Zixtal's face. He caught it and examined it under his suit light. The image showed a creature with pale skin, dark hair, and a wide smile. Two smaller versions of the creature sat on either side. A family, he realized. This was what humans looked like. "Captain, you need to see this," the second security officer called. Zixtal followed the voice to a massive chamber. It stretched the length of several city blocks, filled with row after row of cylindrical pods, thousands of them. His suit scanner reported that many still had power, and inside each one were life signs. "Zixtal," the officer whispered, "there are living creatures in these pods." Fell's voice crackled over the radio from the Prophet's Edge. "Captain, what you're describing sounds like cryosleep technology. Very old, very dangerous. If those pods still have power, the creatures inside might still be alive, frozen in time." Zixtal approached the nearest pod. Ice covered its surface, but he wiped it away with his gloved hand. Inside, he could see a face. It was peaceful, eyes closed, skin pale. A human. A real human. Not a myth or a story, but a living being that had been asleep for centuries. "How many pods are there?" Zixtal asked. His security officer checked the scanner. 50,000, Captain. Give or take. 50,000 humans. 50,000 creatures from myth, sleeping in the void. Zixtal's mind raced. This was bigger than salvage. Bigger than mining rights. This was a discovery that would change the galaxy. "We need to report this to the coalition," he said. But even as he spoke, one of the pods began to hum. Lights flickered across its surface. The ice started to melt. Alarms blared in ancient human language, words that Zixtal's translator struggled to interpret. "Warning. Pod malfunction. Emergency wake protocol initiated. Get back," Zixtal shouted, pushing his security officers away from the pod. The cylinder hissed and split open. Vapor poured out, condensing in the freezing air. A figure sat up inside, gasping, coughing. It was a human female wearing a simple gray suit. Her skin was darker than the one in the photograph. Her black hair was tied back. She looked around with confused eyes, then focused on Zixtal. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The human stared at the insectoid alien in his environmental suit. Zixtal stared at the living myth that had just opened its eyes. The human spoke. Her words came out rough, her throat clearly dry from centuries of sleep. Where am I? What happened to the ship?" Zixtal's translator worked frantically, converting the ancient human language into something he could understand. "You're on your ship," Zixtal said carefully. "We found you drifting in space. How long have you been asleep?" The human looked at her hands, flexing her fingers as if testing whether they were real. "We launched. The cryosleep was supposed to last 50 years. We were going to the new colonies." "Is this the new colonies? Why is it so cold?" "What is your name?" Zixtal asked. "Commander Sarah Chun," the human said. "United Earth Space Navy. Serial number. It doesn't matter. Where are the colonies? Where is the escort fleet?" Zixtal didn't know how to answer. How could he tell this creature that she had been asleep for 800 years? That the galaxy she knew was long gone? That her species was considered a myth? "Commander Chun," he said slowly, "I need you to stay calm. Something went wrong with your ship. You've been asleep much longer than 50 years. Sarah Chun stood up on shaky legs. She was shorter than Zixtal, but there was something in the way she moved, something predatory and efficient. "How long?" "We believe approximately 800 years. The human went very still. Her face showed no emotion, but Zixtal could see her hands clenching into fists. 800 years, she repeated. That's not possible. The navigation systems would have woken us. The emergency protocols. Your ship has been drifting in dead space, Zixtal explained. Far from any star system. There was nothing to wake you. Sarachin walked to a control panel on the wall. She pressed several buttons and, miraculously, a screen flickered to life. Ancient human text scrolled across it. Zixtal watched as her expression shifted, from confusion to shock to something harder, something cold. "The war," she said. "What happened with the war?" "The CRE Dominion was attacking our colonies. The fleet was supposed to meet us at New Terra." "Are we at New Terra?" Zixtal felt his heart sink. "Commander Chun, I don't know how to tell you this. The CRE Dominion fell 600 years ago. The wars of the first expansion are ancient history. The galaxy has changed completely." Sarah Chun turned to face him. "You're not human. What species are you?" "I am Vexum. My name is Captain Zixtal. I command a mining vessel. We found your ship by accident. Where are the other humans? Where is Earth?" Zixtal clicked his mandibles nervously. "Commander, in the modern galaxy, humans are considered myths. Most species believe you never existed. I am looking at something that scholars said was impossible." Sarah Chen's expression hardened. "We're not myths. We're not stories. There are 50,000 people on this ship. 50,000 humans who left Earth 800 years ago and were supposed to wake up in a new home." "What happened?" Zixtal asked. "Why did humans disappear?" Sarah was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "First contact went badly. The early encounters with alien species were violent. Both sides made mistakes. Earth decided to stop expanding, to close its borders. We called it the silence. But some of us didn't want to give up on the stars. Ships like this one, the Perseverance, were sent out to establish colonies far from Earth, away from the politics and the fear." "And you were going to sleep until you reached your destination," Zixtal said. "Yes. But something went wrong. We must have drifted off course." Sarah looked at the thousands of sleeping pods around them. "These people, they have families. They have dreams. They've been asleep for 800 years. What kind of galaxy are they waking up to?" Zixtal didn't have a good answer. The Galactic Coalition was mostly peaceful, but it was also rigid, controlled by the hierarchy. New species were carefully monitored, their expansion restricted. And humans, if the old stories were even partially true, were not a species that accepted control easily. "I should contact my superiors," Zixtal said. "The Galactic Coalition needs to know about this discovery." Sarah Chun looked at him with sharp eyes. "Will we be safe? If you're part of this coalition, will they treat us as people? Or as curiosities?" It was a fair question. Zixtal didn't know the answer. "I will do everything in my power to ensure you are treated with respect," he said. "But, Commander, you must understand, you represent something the galaxy thought was impossible. There will be fear. There will be questions." "We've been asleep for 800 years," Sarah said quietly. "We've already lost everything we knew. Our families on Earth are long dead. The world we left behind is gone. All we have is this ship and each other." She looked directly at Zixtal. "We didn't come this far to be locked up or studied like animals." "I understand," Zixtal said. "Give me time. Let me contact the coalition carefully. We can do this the right way." Sarah Chin nodded slowly. Then she turned to the thousands of sleeping pods. "I need to wake my senior staff. We need to assess the situation, repair what we can. If we're going to face this new galaxy, we need to be ready." Zixtal left the ship with his security officers, his mind racing. As they returned to the Prophet's Edge, he began composing his report. But he knew that once he sent it, everything would change. The galaxy would learn that humans were real. And from the old stories, from the warnings passed down through centuries, Zixtal knew one thing for certain. The galaxy was not ready for humanity to wake up. On the Perseverance, Sarah Chan stood alone in the cryochamber, looking at the sleeping faces of her people. She touched the glass of a nearby pod and whispered, "I'm sorry, you were supposed to wake up to paradise. Instead, you're waking up to the unknown. But we're alive, and we're still human. That has to count for something." The ancient ship's lights flickered around her, and in the darkness of space, humanity began to stir after 800 years of silence. The news spread through the Galactic Coalition like fire through dry grass. Within hours of Captain Zixtal's report, every species in known space knew that humans were real. The reaction was chaos. On the Coalition Central Station, a massive ring structure orbiting a neutral star, representatives from 47 species gathered in an emergency session. The chamber was enormous, with seating arranged in a spiral that allowed everyone to see the central platform. The air buzzed with dozens of different languages, all filtered through translation devices. Inquisitor Velshaw stood at the center, her reptilian scales gleaming under the lights. She was a member of the SOAR, one of the 3 elder species that formed the hierarchy. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Order. We will have order." The chamber fell silent. "We face an unprecedented situation. A species we believe to be extinct or fictional has been discovered, alive and intact. The question before us is simple. What do we do with them?" A 4-armed ambassador named Threk raised one of his hands. "Surely we welcome them as we would welcome any new species. They are refugees lost in time. We should offer aid." "Aid?" Velshaw's eyes narrowed. "Ambassador Tolrek, have you read the historical records? The accounts from the first expansion? Humans were not peaceful refugees. They were warriors, aggressive, territorial, and dangerous. Those records are 800 years old," Threk argued, "and most scholars believe they were exaggerated. We cannot judge these people based on ancient propaganda." An insectoid representative clicked his mandibles. "The records also show that humans defeated the CRE Dominion in 7 major battles despite being technologically inferior. They won through tactics that other species considered insane. Suicide runs, boarding actions, using their own bodies as weapons." Velshaw nodded. "Exactly. And now we have 50,000 of them alive and unaccounted for. We must move carefully. I propose immediate quarantine of their vessel and mandatory genetic testing to verify their claims." The chamber erupted into argument. Some species agreed with Velshaw's caution. Others felt she was being too harsh. In the confusion, nobody noticed the small figure who had slipped into the observer's gallery. Sarah Chun watched the aliens argue about her people's fate. She had managed to get aboard the station with Sixtel's help, though he had warned her it was risky. She wore a simple pressure suit with a helmet that covered her face. To the casual observer, she looked like just another station worker, and she listened carefully. Her translator device was old, but it still worked. As she listened, she heard Velshaw speaking about quarantine and testing. Sarah's jaw clenched. They wanted to treat humans like lab specimens, like animals to be studied. On the Perseverance, Sarah had already awakened 15 more people. Her senior staff, including engineers, doctors, security officers, and scientists. Together, they assessed their situation. The ship was damaged, but reparable. The reactor was still functioning. More importantly, they still had weapons. Old weapons, perhaps primitive by modern standards, but fully functional. Dr. Marcus Webb had been the one to urge caution. "We can't fight the entire galaxy," he had said. "We need to be smart about this." Sarah had agreed. But she had also made one thing clear: humans would not surrender their freedom. Not after sleeping for 800 years. Not after losing everything they had ever known. Back in the Coalition chamber, Velshaw continued speaking. "We will send a science team to examine the human vessel. They will take genetic samples, conduct psychological evaluations, and determine whether these creatures are genuine or some form of artificial life." "They're not creatures," a voice said from the gallery. Every eye in the chamber turned toward Sarah. She removed her helmet, letting her black hair fall free. The chamber fell completely silent. "My name is Commander Sarah Chun," she said clearly. "United Earth Space Navy. I represent the 50,000 humans aboard the Perseverance. And I'm here to tell you, we will not submit to your tests. We are not specimens. We are people." Velshaw recovered quickly from her shock. "Security, remove this human immediately." But before the guards could move, Zixtel stood from his seat. "Inquisitor, by Coalition law, any sentient being has the right to address this council. Commander Chun has broken no laws." Other voices rose in support. Threk stood, his forearms spread wide. "The captain is correct. Let her speak." Velshaw's tail lashed in anger, but she finally nodded. "Very well. Speak, human. Tell us why we should trust you. Sarah walked down to the central platform. Her boots echoed against the metal floor. When she reached the center, she looked around at the many different species surrounding her. 800 years ago, my people left Earth, she began. We left because first contact with alien species had gone badly. Both sides made mistakes. Both sides were afraid. So Earth closed its borders and stopped exploring. But some of us still believed in the dream of the stars. We believed that somewhere out here we could build something better. She gestured around the chamber. We were supposed to sleep for 50 years. We were supposed to wake up on a new world, far from the conflicts and fears of the past. Instead, we slept for 8 centuries. Everyone we knew is gone. The galaxy we knew no longer exists. We have lost everything, except each other. The chamber remained quiet. Some representatives looked sympathetic. Others remained wary. You call us dangerous, Sarah continued. You say we were warriors and killers. Maybe that was true once. But we were also explorers. We were dreamers. We crossed our own solar system before we had proper engines. We survived on a world that most of you would consider too harsh for life. We didn't do these things because we were monsters. We did them because we refused to give up. Pretty words, Velshaw said coldly. But words are not proof. The historical records show that humans were responsible for. The historical records, Sarah interrupted, were written by species who feared us, who saw us as competitors. Yes, we fought wars. Yes, we defended ourselves. But did your records mention that humans saved the altar colonies from the CRE invasion? Did they mention that human medical technology saved millions of Vexum from a plague? Zixtel clicked his mandibles in surprise. He had never heard those accounts. Sarah turned to address the entire chamber. I'm not going to stand here and claim humans are perfect. We're not. We've made terrible mistakes. But we are not the monsters you fear. We are survivors. And right now, all we want is a chance to live in peace. And if we deny you that chance? Velshaw asked. If we decide your presence is too dangerous? Sarah's expression hardened. Then you'll prove that the galaxy hasn't changed at all in 800 years. That it's still ruled by fear instead of hope. The chamber erupted into argument once again. Some species demanded that humans be granted full rights. Others insisted on strict quarantine. In the chaos, Sarah caught Zixtel's eye. The Vexum captain gave her a small, approving nod. The debate went on for hours. Eventually, a compromise was reached. The humans would be allowed to remain on their ship, but they would be monitored. A small delegation of coalition scientists and diplomats would visit the Perseverance to establish formal relations. In exchange, the humans would share information about their history and technology. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than imprisonment. Sarah agreed to the terms. Over the following weeks, more of the crew were awakened. Engineers worked to repair damaged systems. Doctors monitored those still in cryosleep. Slowly, the Perseverance began to come back to life. The coalition delegation arrived as promised. Among them was Dr. Marcus Webb, who had been awakened specifically because of his skills as both a scientist and a diplomat. Marcus was in his 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. Even before relying on translators, he spoke multiple languages and had a natural gift for putting others at ease. Marcus took charge of the negotiations. He guided the visitors through the ship, explained human culture, and patiently answered thousands of questions. The aliens were fascinated by everything: human food, human music, human books. Things that seemed ordinary to humans felt exotic and strange to species that had evolved in completely different ways. One of the coalition scientists, a floating creature named Fel, became especially interested in human medicine. Your healing abilities are remarkable, Fel said to one of the human doctors. You recover from injuries that would kill most species. Dr. Lisa Park smiled. Humans evolved on a tough world. Earth has strong gravity, dangerous weather, and plenty of predators. Our bodies learned to be resilient. Fascinating. Fel pulsed with curiosity. We must study this further. But not all interactions were friendly. A group calling themselves the Purity Movement began protesting outside the Coalition Central Station. They carried signs with messages like, "Myths should stay myths," and "Protect our children from the human threat." Their leader, a radical named Kresh, gave fiery speeches claiming that humans would corrupt the peaceful galaxy. Sarah tried to ignore them, but it wasn't easy. Every day she saw the broadcasts. Every day she heard the debates about whether humans should be allowed to stay. Some species supported them. Others wanted them gone. The breaking point came on the 32nd day after the discovery. A human security officer named Jake Rodriguez was on the Perseverance when 3 members of the Purity Movement managed to sneak aboard, disguised as maintenance workers. They were carrying explosives. Their plan was to destroy the cryochambers, killing the 49,000 humans still asleep. Jake intercepted them in a corridor. He was alone, unarmed, and facing 3 armed attackers. The aliens expected him to run or surrender. Instead, Jake attacked. The fight was brutal. One of the terrorists fired a plasma weapon, burning Jake's shoulder. He didn't stop. He grabbed the weapon and broke the attacker's arm. Another shot hit his leg. Still, Jake kept moving. He threw himself at the second attacker, knocking it down and disabling it with his bare hands. The third terrorist activated the explosive device. 30 seconds. Jake, bleeding and barely able to stand, crawled toward it. His hands trembled from pain and shock. With 15 seconds remaining, he tore out the power core, deactivating the bomb. Security forces arrived moments later to find Jake unconscious, surrounded by 3 captured terrorists and a disabled explosive device. He had suffered injuries that should have killed him, but he was still breathing. The entire incident had been captured on security cameras. The footage spread across the galaxy within hours. Everyone saw it. A human fighting through wounds that would kill most species. A human refusing to stop, even after being shot multiple times. A human choosing to save others instead of himself. The reaction was divided. Some species were horrified by the violence, seeing Jake as proof that humans were dangerous. Others were deeply impressed. They saw him as a hero who had stopped a terrorist attack. Velshaw gave a speech. "This is exactly what I warned you about," Velshaw said. "Humans are weapons disguised as people. They do not feel pain like we do. They do not stop like we do. They are a threat to the order we have built." But Threk gave a different speech. "I saw a person protecting his family," he said. "I saw courage and sacrifice. If that makes humans dangerous, then perhaps this galaxy needs more of that danger." Sarah visited Jake in the medical bay. He was recovering, though the doctors said he would carry scars. "You should have run," she told him. Jake managed a weak smile. "Not in my nature, Commander. Nobody threatens my people." "They're calling you a monster on the news," Sarah said. "Let them," Jake replied. "Better to be a living monster than a dead saint." Sarah laughed despite herself. That was very human. Practical, stubborn, unwilling to give up. As she left the medical bay, Sarah paused at a viewport and stared out at the stars. The galaxy knew humans were real now. They knew humans could fight. They knew humans could survive. The question was, what would the galaxy do about it? And more importantly, what would humans do if the galaxy decided they were too dangerous to exist? On Coalition Central Station, Velshaw watched the footage of Jake Rodriguez for the 100th time. Her cold eyes studied every movement, every moment of endurance. "They are weapons," she whispered to herself, "and weapons must be controlled or destroyed." She began making plans. Secret plans. Plans that did not involve the Coalition Council or its endless debates. If the other species were too weak to see the threat, then she would deal with the humans herself. The galaxy had forgotten why humans were feared. Velshaw intended to remind them. The message arrived at 0300 hours ship time. Sarah Chun was still awake, reviewing repair reports, when the communication system chimed. The face that appeared on her screen belonged to Ambassador Thal, but he looked frightened. "Commander Chun," he said quietly, "you need to leave now. I've learned that the hierarchy is planning something. Velshaw has convinced the other elders that humans are too dangerous. They're going to issue an ultimatum tomorrow. Submit to complete control or be destroyed. Sarah felt her blood run cold. They wouldn't dare. There are 50,000 people on this ship. They would, Thal replied. And worse, the Purity movement has been gathering support. They have ships, weapons. If the hierarchy doesn't act, the extremists will. Please, Commander, take your people and run. Go to the edge of known space. Hide until tempers cool. Sarah wanted to argue. She wanted to fight. But she also had a responsibility to her people. How long do we have? 12 hours. Maybe less. The Purity movement doesn't wait for official orders. Thal hesitated. I'm sorry, Commander. I tried to stop this. But fear is stronger than reason right now. The transmission ended. Sarah sat in silence for a long moment. Then she activated the ship-wide intercom. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. This is not a drill. Within minutes, her command crew assembled. Dr. Marcus Webb, Jake Rodriguez still limping from his injuries, Chief Engineer Tom Reeves, and others. Sarah explained the situation. We have two choices, she said. We run, or we fight. We can't fight the entire galaxy, Marcus said. We have one damaged colony ship against thousands of warships. We also can't run forever, Jake countered. They'll hunt us. And even if we reach the edge of space, then what? We hide for another 800 years. Chief Engineer Reeves cleared his throat. He was a large man with oil-stained hands and a practical mind. Commander, before we left Earth, this ship was equipped with weapons. Colony ships weren't meant to be defenseless. I've been checking the systems. Most of them are still functional. Sarah looked at him sharply. What kind of weapons? Railguns, missile batteries, point defense systems. Nothing fancy, but enough to defend ourselves. Reeves pulled up a schematic on the main display. The Perseverance was designed to be self-sufficient. That included protection against pirates and hostile threats. Against pirates, maybe, Marcus said. But against a military fleet. We don't need to win, Jake interrupted. We just need to make them think twice. Sarah paced the bridge. Every option carried risk. Running meant accepting a life of fear. Fighting meant risking everything. There's another option, she said slowly. Before we left Earth, we weren't the only colony ship. There were others, different destinations, different routes. Marcus understood immediately. If they had the same navigation problems we did, they might still be out there, lost, sleeping. How do we find them? Reeves asked. Sarah's expression hardened. We broadcast. We use every communication array on this ship. We send a message to every corner of this sector. We tell them humanity is awake. And we tell them to come home. That will also tell the galaxy exactly where we are, Marcus warned. They already know where we are, Jake said. We might as well make some noise. Sarah made her decision. Do it. Send the broadcast on all frequencies. And Reeves, get those weapons online. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. The broadcast went out at 0400 hours. It was simple, transmitted in ancient Earth languages unheard for 8 centuries. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Perseverance. To any human colonies receiving this message, we are awake. We are alive. The galaxy knows we exist. If you can hear this, respond. If you can travel, come to these coordinates. Humanity needs to stand together. The message repeated every 60 seconds. And then, they waited. On Coalition Central Station, alarms blared. Communication officers scrambled to track the signal. Linguists rushed to translate the ancient languages. When they finally understood the message, panic spread. She's calling for more of them, one analyst reported to Velshaw. If there are other human colonies out there, if they respond. Velshaw's eyes gleamed with cold fury. Then we must act now before they can gather. Prepare the security fleet. We will destroy the Perseverance before reinforcements arrive. But she was already too late. The broadcast had been timed perfectly. Within 2 hours, responses began to arrive. The first came from a signal 60 light-years away, rough, barely coherent. This is the colony ship Defiance. We receive you, Perseverance. We are waking our crew. We're coming. Then another response. And another. By dawn, 12 separate signals had been detected. 12 human colony ships scattered across the forbidden sectors, all waking, all responding. The galaxy watched in shock as long-dormant vessels came back to life. Ships that had drifted in silence for centuries were now powering up and moving toward the Perseverance. The Purity movement decided they could not wait. Kresh, their leader, gathered every ship he could, 40 warships from a dozen species, united by fear. They jumped to the Perseverance's coordinates. Sarah watched them appear on her sensors. 40 ships surrounding her position. She had awakened more of her crew. 2,000 humans were now active, manning stations, preparing for what was coming. They're hailing us, the communications officer reported. Put them through, Sarah said. Kresh's face appeared on the screen. An amphibian creature with bulbous eyes and green skin. Human ship Perseverance, you are in violation of Galactic Coalition space. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Sarah stood calmly. Behind her, her crew worked in silence. We have violated no laws. We are refugees. We have a right to exist. You are a threat to galactic peace, Kresh snapped. Your very existence destabilizes our society. Surrender now, and you will be treated mercifully. No, Sarah said simply. Kresh blinked in disbelief. No? You are one ship against 40. You cannot win this fight. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. You don't know what you're dealing with. You think humans are myths. You think we're weak because we were asleep. You're wrong. She leaned forward. This is your only warning. Leave now, or face the consequences. Kresh laughed. Brave words from a dead woman. All ships, open fire. The Purity fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled the void, lighting up the darkness around the Perseverance. But the human ship was ready. Point defense systems activated, shredding incoming missiles. Shields absorbed the worst of the energy strikes. And then, the humans fired back. The railguns had originally been designed for defense against small threats, but Chief Engineer Reeves had modified them. He increased their power, refined their targeting, and loaded them with anything he could use as ammunition. When they fired, solid chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. One Purity ship exploded instantly as a railgun round tore straight through its hull. Another ship lost its engines to a missile strike. And the battle had only just begun. The humans fought with a precision that shocked their attackers. They're actually fighting back, one of Kresh's officers shouted in panic. Impossible! Kresh stared at his displays in disbelief. They're a colony ship. They shouldn't have these weapons. But humans, as the galaxy was learning, were full of surprises. Jake Rodriguez led a team in one of the Perseverance's old shuttles. It was a crazy plan, insane even, but it was very human. The shuttle accelerated toward an enemy ship at maximum speed. Shuttle, you will be destroyed, the enemy captain warned. Jake's only response was to fire the shuttle's small weapons and push the engines even harder. At the last possible second, he and his team launched in emergency escape pods, abandoning the shuttle. The unmanned craft slammed into the enemy ship at high velocity, tearing a massive hole in its hull. Before the enemy could recover, Jake's team crossed the gap in their suits and entered through the breach. They moved through the ship with brutal efficiency, humans fighting in close quarters using weapons designed for boarding combat. The aliens had never experienced anything like it. They're inside the ship, the enemy captain screamed. How are they inside? Within minutes, Jake's team had taken control of the bridge. The enemy ship surrendered. Across the battlefield, the Purity fleet descended into chaos. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they faced an enemy that refused to die, an enemy that turned every disadvantage into a weapon. And then, the rest of humanity arrived. 12 colony ships dropped out of FTL in formation around the Perseverance. They were old, damaged, and scarred by time, but they were armed and they were ready. The largest ship transmitted a message. This is Captain James Park of the New Dawn. We've been asleep for 800 years. We woke up to find our people under attack. And that was a mistake. His voice turned cold. All human ships, weapons free. Show them why Earth went silent. The battle that followed would be studied for generations. 12 human colony ships and the damaged Perseverance faced 40 warships of the Purity Fleet. On paper, the humans should have lost. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and using technology 8 centuries old. But humans did not fight like other species. They used ramming maneuvers. They coordinated with an instinctive precision that seemed almost telepathic. They took damage that should have destroyed them and kept fighting. One human ship, its engines destroyed and weapons offline, used its remaining thrusters to ram an enemy vessel. The pilot's final transmission was simple. For Earth, the Purity Fleet broke. Ships began to retreat in panic. Kresh watched in horror as his forces scattered. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They're just refugees. They're not supposed to be warriors." But humans had never stopped being warriors. They had only been asleep. Sarah watched as the last enemy ships jumped away. Her bridge crew erupted into cheers. Around her, 12 other human ships held formation. 13 human colonies, awake and united for the first time in 800 years. She opened a channel to all ships. "This is Commander Sarah Chen. Welcome back to the waking world. I only wish our reunion had been under better circumstances." Captain James Park's weathered face appeared on the screen. "Commander Chun, we've been monitoring galactic communications during our journey. We know what's happening. The galaxy is afraid of us." "Yes," Sarah replied. "Good," Park said grimly. "Fear keeps people honest. What are your orders?" Sarah looked around her bridge, at her crew who had fought so hard, at the captains waiting for her decision. She thought about Earth, about the home they had left behind, about the galaxy that had dismissed them as myths. "We need to make a statement," she said. "The galaxy must understand that humans are not going away, that we have a right to exist, that we will not be controlled or destroyed. We could run," one captain suggested. "Take our ships to the edge of space. Build our own civilization far from all this." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We ran once. Earth went silent because of fear. I will not let fear control us again. We stay. We fight if we must, but we stay." The other captains nodded in agreement. 13 human colonies, representing over 600,000 people still waking from cryosleep, stood united behind one decision. They would not hide. They would not run. On Coalition Central Station, Velshaw watched the battle reports with cold fury. The Purity Fleet had been destroyed. Humans had proven they could fight, and worse, they had found each other. "This has gone too far," she told the other elders. "We must act with full military force. We must destroy these humans before they become a true threat." The other elders hesitated. "Public opinion is divided," one said. "Many species are impressed by human courage. If we attack now, we will look like aggressors. Better to be called aggressors than to be dead," Velshaw hissed. "I propose we send the Vanguard Armada, 300 ships, the finest vessels in the galaxy. We will crush the humans and end this threat once and for all." After long debate, the hierarchy agreed. The order was given. The Vanguard Armada would deploy, and this time, there would be no mercy. Sarah received the warning from Zixtal. The Vexum captain was risking everything to keep her informed. "Commander, they're sending their main fleet. 300 warships. You need to run. Even with 13 ships, you cannot win this fight." Sarah studied the data. 300 ships, the full might of the Galactic Coalition. Impossible odds. She smiled. "Zixtal, have you ever heard the old Earth saying? If you want peace, prepare for war." "I have heard it now," Zixtal replied nervously. "We're not running," Sarah said. "Tell your coalition this, humans are done hiding. If they want a war, we'll give them one. And when it's over, they'll remember why Earth went silent." She paused. "Not because we were afraid, but because we were dangerous." The transmission ended. Sarah turned to her crew. Wake everyone. All 600,000. We're going to need every person we have. Where are we going, Commander? Marcus asked. Sarah brought up a star chart. At its center glowed a small yellow star. We're going home, she said. We're going to Earth. And we're going to show this galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, all 600,000 humans were awakened from their long sleep. The colony ships were never designed to hold that many active people at once. They became crowded, chaotic, but humans adapted as they always did. Dr. Marcus Webb worked tirelessly, helping people adjust. 800 years was a long time to lose. Many woke confused. Many grieved for the world they had lost. Others were angry. All of them wanted answers. Sarah spoke to them in groups, explaining everything. The galaxy they had awakened into was not the one they had left behind. Species had risen and fallen. Old enemies were gone. And humanity had become a myth. What do we do now? A young woman asked. Everything we knew is gone. We adapt, Sarah said simply. That's what humans do. We adapt. We survive. And we build something new. They want to kill us, a man shouted. The news says the galaxy is sending a fleet to destroy us. Yes, Sarah said. They are. And we're going to stop them. How? Another voice called. We're refugees, not soldiers. Sarah looked across the crowd. You're right. Most of you aren't soldiers. You're engineers, doctors, teachers, farmers. You came out here to build new lives. She paused, her voice steady. But you're also human. And humans have something that no galaxy, no empire, no army has ever been able to destroy. Captain Zixtel clicked his mandibles together in frustration. The scanner readings made no sense. His mining ship, the Prophet's Edge, had been searching the forbidden sectors for 3 weeks, and all they had found were rocks and radiation. His crew was getting restless. His investors would be angry. The Vexum captain was about to order a return to civilized space when his navigation officer chirped urgently. Captain, we have something. It's big. Zixtel's compound eyes focused on the display. There, drifting in the eternal darkness between stars, was a massive structure. It was easily 3 kilometers long, shaped like a cylinder with strange geometric patterns along its hull. The metal was old, corroded by centuries of cosmic radiation, but it was intact. What is it? Zixtel asked. His science officer, a floating gas bag creature named Fel, pulsed with curious colors. Unknown design, Captain. The architecture doesn't match any known species in the database. Energy signatures are minimal, almost dead. But there's something. The reactor core is still active. Barely. Zixtel felt his instincts warning him. The forbidden sectors were forbidden for a reason. Ancient wars had been fought here. Dangerous weapons were left behind. The Galactic Coalition had strict rules about exploring these areas. But the ship looked intact. If they could salvage even a fraction of its materials, they would be rich. Send a probe, he ordered. The probe launched and crossed the distance in minutes. His cameras transmitted images back to the Prophet's Edge. The hull was covered in strange symbols, letters that looked primitive yet somehow purposeful. The probe found an airlock and began scanning. Captain, Fel said, his voice trembling with something between fear and excitement. I found matches in the historical database. These symbols, they're ancient, very ancient. This is writing from the first expansion era. Zixtel felt his blood run cold. The first expansion era was 800 years ago, when the galaxy was young and species first began exploring beyond their home systems. It was also the time of the Great Wars before the hierarchy brought order. Can you identify the species? Zixtel asked. Fel was silent for a long moment. Captain, the database lists this as Terran human. But that's impossible. The bridge went silent. Every member of the crew turned to look at Fel. Humans were myths. Every child in the galaxy knew the stories. They were monsters from ancient tales, warriors who never stopped fighting, who turned their own bodies into weapons. Parents used their stories to scare children into obedience. Scholars dismissed them as propaganda from old wars. Humans aren't real, Zixtal said, though his voice lacked confidence. The historical records say they were, Fel replied. They came from a system called Sol. They appeared during the first expansion, made contact with several species, then vanished. Most scholars believe their home world was destroyed. Others think they never existed at all. Zixtal stared at the image of the ancient ship. If this was truly a human vessel, it was worth more than any mineral they could mine. Museums would pay fortunes. Researchers would fight for access. But more than that, Zixtal felt the pull of curiosity. What if humans had been real? What if this ship held answers to one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries? I'm going aboard, he announced. His crew protested, but Zixtal was firm. He took 2 security officers and crossed to the ancient vessel in a small shuttle. The airlock was old but functional. With some effort, they managed to open it. The interior was dark and cold. Their lights cut through the blackness, revealing narrow corridors, strangely compact compared to modern ships. Everything was built for creatures who walked on 2 legs and stood about 2 meters tall. Life support is offline, one security officer reported. Atmosphere is present, but frozen. Temperature is 200 degrees below zero. They moved deeper into the ship. The corridors were maze-like and confusing. Human design, Zixtal realized, was different. Where other species built logical, easy-to-navigate layouts, humans packed everything tightly together, using every centimeter of space. They found living quarters, small rooms with bunks and personal items still floating in zero gravity. A photograph drifted past Zixtal's face. He caught it and examined it under his suit light. The image showed a pale-skinned creature with dark hair and a wide smile. 2 smaller versions sat beside it. Family. This was what humans looked like. Captain, you need to see this. Zixtal followed the voice into a massive chamber. It stretched for what felt like city blocks, filled with row after row of cylindrical pods, thousands of them. His scanner reported power and life signs. There are living creatures in these pods, he whispered. Fel's voice crackled over the radio. Captain, that sounds like cryosleep technology. Very old. Very dangerous. If those pods still have power, the beings inside may still be alive. Frozen in time. Zixtal approached the nearest pod. Ice covered its surface. He wiped it away. Inside was a face. Peaceful, eyes closed, pale skin. A human. How many pods? He asked. 50,000, Captain, the officer replied. Approximately 50,000 humans. Zixtal's mind raced. This was beyond salvage. Beyond wealth. This would change the galaxy. We need to report this to the coalition, he said. But before he could continue, one of the pods began to hum. Lights flickered. Ice melted. Ancient alarms blared in a language his translator struggled to interpret. Warning. Pod malfunction. Emergency wake protocol initiated. Get back, Zixtal shouted. The pod hissed open. Vapor poured out. The figure sat up, gasping and coughing. A human female. She wore a simple gray suit. Her skin was dark, her hair tied back. Her eyes darted around, confused, then locked onto Zixtal. For a long moment, neither moved. The human stared at the insectoid alien. Zixtal stared at the living myth that had just awakened. The human spoke, her voice rough from centuries of sleep. Where am I? What happened to the ship? Zixtal's translator worked frantically. You're on your ship, he said carefully. We found you drifting in space. How long were you asleep? The human flexed her fingers, as if testing reality. We launched. Cryosleep was supposed to last 50 years. We were heading to new colonies. Is this the colony? Why is it so cold? What is your name? Zixtal asked. Commander Sarah Chin, United Earth Space Navy. Zixtal hesitated. Commander, you've been asleep much longer than 50 years. How long? Approximately 800 years. Silence. Sarah stood on shaky legs. Her face was calm, but her hands clenched. 800 years. That's not possible. Your ship drifted in dead space, Zixtal explained. There was nothing to wake you. She moved to a control panel. Somehow it flickered to life. Ancient text scrolled across the screen. Her expression shifted, shock, then something colder. The war, what happened? The CRE Dominion. Our fleet, New Terra. Zixtal answered quietly. The CRE Dominion fell 600 years ago. Those wars are ancient history. Sarah turned slowly. You're not human. What are you? I am Vexum. Captain Zixtal. She stared at him. Where are the other humans? Where is Earth? Zixtal hesitated. In the modern galaxy, humans are considered myths. Her expression hardened. We are not myths. There are 50,000 people on this ship. What happened to your species? Sarah was silent for a long time. First contact went badly. Earth closed its borders. We called it the silence. But some of us refused to give up. Ships like this one, the Perseverance, were sent to build new colonies. Zixtal looked around at the sleeping pods. And now they wake up in a galaxy that forgot them. Zixtal exhaled slowly. I need to report this. Sarah met his gaze. Will we be safe? Zixtal hesitated. I will try, but there will be fear. She nodded, then looked at the sleeping humans. Then we prepare. As Zixtal left the ship, he knew everything had changed. The galaxy would soon learn the truth. Humans were real, and somewhere deep in his instincts, Zixtal knew one thing with certainty. The galaxy was not ready for humanity to wake up. Zither stared at his displays. This was impossible. The record said Earth had been abandoned, that humans had vanished. Instead, they had been building, preparing, waiting. This changes nothing, Zither said, though his voice lacked confidence. We still outnumber them. The Earth commander's voice came over the open channel. Admiral, you're in our home system. You've threatened our people. You've come here with weapons and demands. That was your first mistake. The voice turned cold. Your second mistake was thinking we're the same humans you met 800 years ago. We're not. We've had 8 centuries to think about first contact. 8 centuries to improve. 8 centuries to prepare for the day someone threatened Earth again. If you attack, this means war. War with the entire galactic coalition, Zither warned. Then war it is, the Earth commander replied. All human vessels, weapons free. Show them what 800 years of Earth engineering looks like. The battle began. Human ships moved with a coordination that shocked the Vanguard Armada. They did not hold rigid formations like traditional fleets. Instead, they scattered, attacked from multiple angles, and used tactics that seemed chaotic but worked perfectly. Earth's defense platforms fired weapons the aliens had never seen. Kinetic kill vehicles accelerated to impossible speeds. Directed energy weapons burned through shields. Missiles tracked targets with predictive AI, anticipating every move. The 13 colony ships, the ancient vessels that had started the crisis, fought with terrifying intensity. Their weapons were older, less refined, but they used them with creativity and precision. The Perseverance deliberately took damage to close distance, then fired point-blank into an enemy ship. Jake Rodriguez led boarding teams onto hostile vessels. The aliens were not prepared for close combat. Most species avoided it. Humans specialized in it. This is wrong, one alien officer screamed as Jake's team stormed the bridge. This is not how civilized species fight. Jake disabled him with a stun weapon. We're not civilized, he said. We're human. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships exploded. Lives were lost. The space around Earth became a graveyard of fire and drifting metal. Slowly, inevitably, the Vanguard Armada began to lose. Not because of inferior technology, the coalition ships were more advanced in many ways, but because of tactics, unpredictability, and relentless human persistence. Humans fought as if they had nothing left to lose. Admiral Zither watched his fleet crumble. Ship after ship reported damage. Admiral, we must retreat, his second-in-command urged. We cannot retreat, Zither replied. To retreat is to admit defeat. The entire galaxy is watching. Better to retreat in defeat than die in pride, the officer countered. Before Zither could respond, his flagship shuddered violently. Alarms blared. Report. We've been boarded. Humans are on the ship. Zither froze. Boarded? In the middle of a space battle? It was madness. Yet the sounds of combat echoed beyond the bridge doors. Energy fire, shouting in unfamiliar languages. The doors exploded inward. Smoke filled the room. Through it, a figure stepped forward. Commander Sarah Chin. She wore an old-style suit and carried a weapon that looked centuries out of date. But she held it with absolute confidence. Admiral Zither, she said calmly. I'm here to accept your surrender. Zither reached for his sidearm. Her weapon snapped toward him instantly. I wouldn't, she said. I've been awake for 6 weeks after 800 years of sleep. I'm tired, I'm angry, and I really don't want to shoot you. But I will. Zither looked around. His officers were disarmed. Human soldiers stood everywhere, having somehow fought their way through his flagship. He turned back to her. How? He asked quietly. How did humans become this? Sarah gave a faint, almost sad smile. We didn't become this. We've always been this. Your records just forgot. Or chose to. She stepped closer. Humans are persistence hunters. We evolved chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We turned that instinct toward the stars. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We just keep going until we win or we die. The galaxy will never accept you, Zither said. You've defeated one fleet, but there are thousands more. Sarah didn't hesitate. Then they can come. We'll defeat them too or we'll die trying. That's the human way. She gestured toward his console. Order your fleet to stand down, Admiral. This battle is over. Zither hesitated. Then he looked at the data. More than half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The humans were still advancing. He gave the order. The Vanguard Armada withdrew. 300 ships had arrived to crush humanity. Fewer than 200 limped away. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Earth, the forgotten world, had revealed its strength. Humans, the myths and legends, had proven they were real and dangerous. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Sarah looked at Earth through the viewport. Home. Finally home. But she knew it wasn't over. They'll be back, Marcus said quietly. I know, Sarah replied. But next time they'll think twice. What happens now? Sarah looked at the ships in orbit, at the millions of humans now awake, at the galaxy that feared them. Now, she said, we teach the galaxy what it means to live alongside humans, whether they like it or not. The news of the Vanguard Armada's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. 300 ships, the most powerful fleet ever assembled, had been beaten by a species believed to be extinct. Reactions were chaotic. Some demanded retaliation. Others called for peace. Many simply didn't know what to believe. The hierarchy, the 3 elder species that had ruled for centuries, faced a crisis unlike any before. On Earth, Sarah Chun walked on solid ground for the first time in 800 years. She had been born there, raised under its sky, then left it behind chasing the stars. Now she had returned. The world had changed. Cities larger, technology more advanced, but humanity remained. The colony ships were welcomed with celebration. Families reunited across centuries. Stories were shared. Tears were shed. Sarah met with the Earth Council, the governing body that had guided humanity through the long silence. The chamber was deep underground, built to survive any attack. 7 members sat in a semicircle as she entered. Commander Chun, the chairman said, an older man with sharp eyes. Welcome home. We followed your journey. What you did, waking the colonies, uniting humanity. It was remarkable. It was necessary, Sarah replied. The galaxy wants us controlled or destroyed. I refuse both. We know, another council member said, a military officer. We've been preparing for this since the silence began. Closing Earth wasn't fear. It was strategy. We needed time to build, to strengthen, to ensure no species could threaten us again. Sarah looked at them carefully. You've been planning this for 8 centuries. The chairman nodded. We knew the colony ships were out there. We sent them before the silence. When they vanished, we mourned. But we never stopped watching. And we never stopped preparing. And now, Sarah said, that preparation is over. The chairman met her gaze. Yes, now it begins. The military officer agreed. The hierarchy would not let this defeat stand. They would regroup and send more ships. We estimate we have maybe 6 months before they try again, 6 months to prepare for war, Sarah said, or 6 months to make peace. Dr. Marcus Webb spoke up. He had accompanied Sarah to the meeting. There must be species in the galaxy who do not want this conflict, species who would be willing to negotiate. The chairman looked at Marcus thoughtfully. There are. Our intelligence suggests that many species are uncomfortable with the hierarchy's aggression. The ambassador Thulrek, for example, has been speaking out against the attacks. And Captain Zixtel, Sarah added, he helped us from the beginning, risked his career to protect us. Then we used them. The military officer said we build alliances, show the galaxy that humans can be partners, not just threats. Sarah shook her head. It is not that simple. The galaxy saw what we can do in battle. They saw us defeat the Vanguard Armada. Fear does not build partnerships. It builds resentment. Sometimes fear is necessary, the chairman said. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity cannot be pushed around. But you are right, Commander. Fear alone is not enough. We need to show them who we really are. Over the next weeks, Earth launched a massive diplomatic effort. Messages were sent to every species in the Galactic Coalition. The message was simple: humanity did not seek war. Humanity wanted peace. But humanity would defend itself without hesitation. Some species responded positively. 3 species, the philosophical, far-minded species, offered to mediate. Zixtel's Vexum reached out with messages of friendship. Others remained hostile, led by Inquisitor Velshaw, who continued to call for humanity's destruction. Sarah spent her time working with the colony ship crews. 600,000 people needed to be integrated into Earth society. Some wanted to stay on Earth. Others wanted to establish new colonies on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, or in other systems. Earth had expanded significantly during the silence, and there was room for everyone. Jake Rodriguez had been offered a position in Earth's military. He accepted, training new soldiers in the tactics that had proven so effective against the aliens. We need to be ready, he told his recruits. Peace is great, but peace only lasts when people know you can fight. Dr. Marcus Webb became Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Coalition. He traveled to Coalition Central Station with a small delegation. It was a risky move. Anti-human sentiment was still strong. But Marcus believed in the power of dialogue. When he arrived at the station, security forces surrounded him. Inquisitor Valia was there, her cold eyes fixed on him. You dare come here? She hissed. I come in peace, Marcus said calmly, to offer the coalition a chance to avoid further conflict. You defeated our fleet, Velcher spat. You humiliated the hierarchy. And now you speak of peace? We defended ourselves, Marcus replied. Your fleet came to our home system with weapons and threats. What did you expect us to do, roll over and die? He looked around at the assembled aliens. Humans do not want war, but we will not be controlled. We will not be destroyed. We want to live in peace with the galaxy, but that peace must be based on mutual respect, not fear. Ambassador Thalrek stepped forward. The human speaks wisdom. We cannot undo what has happened. We can only decide how to move forward. The hierarchy's approach has failed. Perhaps it is time to try a different way. The debate lasted for days. Species argued back and forth. Some wanted to send another fleet, larger than the first. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested simply leaving humanity alone, quarantining Sol System and pretending humans did not exist. Finally, a proposal emerged. It came from an unlikely source, Admiral Zether, the commander who had been defeated at Earth. He had been disgraced by his loss, but he was still respected as a military mind. We cannot defeat humanity through force, Zether said. They have proven that. We also cannot ignore them. They exist. They are powerful and they will not hide. He paused. I propose a treaty. Humanity joins the Galactic Coalition as a sovereign member. They are granted full rights, including the right to defend themselves. In exchange, humanity agrees to abide by coalition laws regarding expansion and warfare. You would give them equality? Velshaw demanded. After what they did, after what we forced them to do. Zether corrected. Inquisitor, I fought them. I saw their ships, their tactics, their determination. If we continue on this path, we will have a war that will destroy both sides. Better to have humans as reluctant allies than as desperate enemies. The proposal was put to a vote. Passed barely. Many species voted against it, but enough voted in favor that the motion carried. The Treaty of Seoul was signed 3 months after the Battle of Earth. Sarah Chun represented humanity along with members of the Earth Council and the colony ship commanders. The signing took place on Coalition Central Station with representatives from all 47 species present. Sarah stood at the podium looking at the assembled aliens. Some looked at her with respect, others with fear, a few with hatred, but they all looked at her as an equal now. 800 years ago, Sarah began, humanity left Earth because first contact went badly. We were afraid. You were afraid. Both sides made mistakes. So Earth went silent and humans disappeared from the galaxy. She paused. But we never disappeared. We were just sleeping, waiting, growing, and now we are awake. She looked directly at Velshaw. Some of you still fear us. Some of you think we are monsters. Maybe you are right. Humans can be dangerous. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight, to survive, to never give up. Those instincts are in our DNA. But we are also capable of great kindness, great creativity, great loyalty. On Earth we have a saying, we are only as strong as we are united, as weak as we are divided. That is true for humanity, and I believe it is true for the galaxy. She held up the treaty. This document says that humans are equal members of the Galactic Coalition, that we have the same rights and responsibilities as any other species. It is not perfect. There will be problems and conflicts, but it is a start. Humanity is home. We are here to stay, and we are ready to build a future with all of you. A future where species work together instead of fighting, where differences are celebrated instead of feared. Sarah smiled. We came from a dangerous world. We survived 800 years of sleep. We fought off 2 fleets. If we can do all that, surely we can learn to live in peace. The treaty was signed. It was not a perfect peace. Many species remained suspicious of humans. Velshaw continued to speak against humanity at every opportunity. The purity movement went underground but did not disappear. Still, it was a beginning. Over the following years, humans slowly integrated into galactic society. Earth established embassies on Coalition Central Station and on the home worlds of friendly species. Human merchants began trading with aliens. Human scientists collaborated on research projects. Human artists shared their culture. Some humans left Sol System to establish new colonies. This time, the galaxy watched and allowed it. Other humans stayed on Earth, content to be home, while the colony ships, those ancient vessels that had sparked everything, were turned into museums, monuments to the long sleep and the awakening. Sarah Chun retired from active duty. She had done her part in waking humanity and securing its future. Now she wanted to rest. She moved to a small town on Earth's coast, far from cities and politics. One day, Captain Zixtel visited her. The Vexum had become one of humanity's strongest advocates in the coalition. He had even learned to speak English without a translator. He found her on the beach watching the sunset. Commander Chun, he said, I hope I am not intruding. Not at all, Sarah replied. And it is just Sarah now. I am retired. Zixtel settled beside her, his insectoid body adjusting to the sand. The galaxy is still adjusting to humanity's presence. But things are improving. Trade is increasing. Tensions are decreasing. That is good, Sarah said. That is what we fought for. I wanted to thank you, Zixtel said, for trusting me at the beginning, for seeing me as a person, not just an alien. Sarah smiled. You earned that trust. You helped us when nobody else would. They sat in silence for a while, watching the waves. Finally, Zixtel spoke again. Do you think it will last, this peace? Sarah considered. I do not know. Humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We will work for peace, but we will stay ready just in case. Very human thinking, Zixtal observed. Yes, Sarah agreed. Very human. Far above them in orbit around Earth, the defense platforms remained active. The fleet stayed ready. Earth had learned its lesson from the silence. Peace was valuable, but strength made peace possible. On Coalition Central Station, in a classroom where young aliens learned about galactic history, a teacher discussed recent events. A student raised a tentacle and asked, "Teacher, are the stories about humans true? Did they really defeat the Vanguard Armada?" The teacher, who had fought in that battle, paused. "Yes," they said quietly. "Every word is true. Humans were myths for 800 years. Now they are real, and they are our allies." The teacher looked at the young student. "But remember this lesson well. Humanity did not seek conflict. They were forced into it. They would have preferred peace, but when pushed, they pushed back harder than anyone expected." "Are they dangerous?" another student asked. "Yes," the teacher said honestly. "Very dangerous, but so are all species in their own way. The question is not whether humans are dangerous. The question is whether they are our friends or our enemies." The teacher smiled. "Thanks to the Treaty of Soul, they are our friends, and I pray it stays that way." In his private chambers, Inquisitor Vela watched recordings of human ships, human tactics, and human victories. She had lost the public battle. The treaty had been signed, but she had not given up. "One day," she whispered, "the galaxy will see that I was right. One day, humans will show their true nature, and when that day comes, I will be ready." But that day would not come, because humanity had learned from 800 years of silence. They had learned that isolation solved nothing, that fear led only to conflict. They had learned to be strong without being aggressive, to be ready without being hostile. And most importantly, they had learned that they were not alone anymore. Humanity had rejoined the galaxy, and this time they would stay. On Earth, Sarachin planted a tree. It was a memorial, one of thousands. Each tree represented a human who had died in the battles. Each tree was a reminder of the cost of peace. As she dug into the soil, feeling the earth under her hands, she thought about the journey, the long sleep, the rude awakening, the battles, the victories, the losses. "We made it," she whispered to the tree. "We are home. We are safe. And we are here to stay." Above her, the sky was clear and blue. The same sky that had watched humanity evolve from primitive hunters to starfaring explorers. The same sky that had seen humans leave and return. And in that sky, barely visible even in daylight, were the stars. Humanity had gone to the stars once before and been forced back. Now they were among them again. But this time they were not running, not hiding. They were standing tall, equal partners in the great galactic community. The myths had become real. The silence had ended, and all hell had broken loose. But when the dust settled, when the battles ended, when peace finally came, humanity was still standing, still surviving, still refusing to give up. Because that was what humans did. They persisted. They endured. They adapted. They were human, and nothing in the galaxy would ever change that.